don't normally do voiceover for my gameplay videos, but for this Kaycee's mod run of Inscryption, I felt as though a bit of narration here was necessary. I went into this run expecting to create a standard bone deck, but when I got to the initial draft and saw both field mice and cat, I wondered to myself, can I create an Undead Cat deck in Kaycee's mod? For those who don't know or don't play Inscryption, the Undead Cat is a rare and hard to obtain secret card that you can only get by continually sacrificing the cat over and over. This is a very powerful card with great power and a lot of health. Realistically, you're not going to create this card in-game for deck purposes. That is unless you intentionally build an Undead Cat deck. But to do that, you need a blood cost card with the Fecundity Sigil, a sigil that returns a copy of the card you just played back into your hand. Specifically, you want Field Mice. Field Mice works because it is a card that costs 2 blood to play, and when played in tandem with a cat, once you have both cards down, you can then use the old Field Mice and the cat to generate a sacrifice loop that eventually spawns an Undead Cat. Ergo, these two cards, when combined, are a dangerous force. In the base game of Inscryption, this is entirely doable. In fact, it's very easy to create an Undead Cat deck in Act 2 since you can buy both cards from the trader at Leshy's cabin. I've gone ahead and made this deck there, and it is very good. But in Kaycee's mod, the sigil was nerfed to remove itself on the first copy created. In other words, the combination is broken because you cannot create endless copies or a sacrifice loop. But there is a workaround that I figured out that makes this deck possible again. All you need is a card with the unkillable sigil that returns to your hand when it is used as a sacrifice. So is it a cockroach or an Ouroboros? Take the cards to the Mysterious Stones event and sacrifice the unkillable card onto the field mice to infuse the sigil onto the card, combining them together. Once done, it basically functions the same way as Spore Mice from Act 2, just with a few more steps. You end up with a copy of a card that can be used again and again and regenerates itself every other sacrifice. It's actually pretty insane, to be honest, and there's a lot of ways that this can be exploited further. But that requires a lot of luck to go your way in order to pull it off. I did it! By complete fluke, I was able to get a cockroach right before a Mysterious Stones event, meaning that I can put the unkillable sigil onto the field mice and create the sacrifice loop. It was pure luck, nothing else, and it kind of set the tone of the run, really. I won't spoil anything, but I will be uploading a second half of this run that you have been watching tomorrow, where you will see just how bonkers and hilarious this deck became. In the meantime, if you find yourself in a position of making this deck yourself in Kaycee's mod, let me give you a few additional tips, not all of which I was able to do myself. The first piece of advice I can give is to make sure that any cats in your deck are the only 1 blood cost cards. The reason for this is that the game is coded to always draw a 1 blood cost card from your deck on the first turn. So if a cat is the only 1 blood cost unit, you will always draw it and be able to play it. Speaking of which, don't bother buffing the cat with the purpose of making the Undead Cat better. Any improvements made to the cat do not carry over onto the Undead Cat. None! As for other cards that can improve this deck, I recommend focusing mostly on bone cost units. Since you'll be generating so many bones, having a bunch of bone cost units is pretty handy. But 2 particular cards that will really help and benefit from this deck are the Magpie and the Red Heart. Magpie has utility with its Hoarder Sigil, which lets it search your deck for the field mice. Actually, for that matter, any card with the Hoarder Sigil will work, just as long as it can then be sacrificed along with the cat to start the loop. Red Heart, on the other hand, has the unique Spilled Blood power that increases with every sacrifice made in a single turn. And in the case of this deck, that is going to be a lot. In fact, if you sacrifice your field mice and Undead Cat to the Red Heart, it will deal enough damage at once to not only completely overturn a battle, but win it in a single shot. Condition depending, you may also want to consider the card tentacle, since it gets more power the more cards there are in your hand, which with this deck is likely to be a lot. But it is a 1 blood cost card, so be careful about choosing it. And that there is basically the Undead Cat deck in Kaycee's mod. Not consistently reliable in setting up, I will admit, but if you are successful in pulling it off, it is incredible. Hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned tomorrow to see just how mad this deck became by the end of this run. In the meantime, enjoy my fight against the Prospector where I demonstrate the basic principle of this strategy and deck.